Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you my February wrap-up video. In the month of February I read 11 books and I'm here to chat about all of them with you. We're going to start off on a high note and end on a high note so that we can wrap up with all that positivity. Let's get right down to the books. So the first book that I have to talk to you about is one of my new favourite books, and that is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. I absolutely adored this book. I want to quickly correct myself because in my TBR video I did say that this one is a middle grade. It is not a middle grade, it is a young adult novel, so that's just to be clear on that. So this one follows Jam, who is our main character that you can see on the cover, and she is a black trans main character teenager, and she lives in this world called Lucille, or she lives in this city called Lucille, and there are no more monsters in Lucille, but she discovers that maybe there is one monster, and she employs the help of Pet and her best friend Redemption to find out who this monster is and what they can do to stop this monster. Now, this book was just fantastic on every single level. I truly mean that. I think Emezi's writing is absolutely amazing. This is the kind of writing that I read as a writer myself and wish I could write like that. The use of extensive metaphor was absolutely fantastic because the definition of monster is not as straightforward as it seems. People who are billionaires hoarding lots of money can be seen as monsters. People who are racist can be seen as monsters, and there's just so many different definitions of monsters that slowly get revealed throughout the reading process, and I thought it was a fantastic use of metaphor and delivered so well that it worked incredibly well for the book. This one also deals with a quite heavy subject matter, but it does so in a very sensitive way, and I think it did a good job of discussing the aftermath of a situation like this, what should be happening. It had a lot to do with being aware of the fact that maybe there are things that go wrong in the world, but we shouldn't become complacent with the good that we see. We should always be on our guard, we should always be looking out for other people, and I think it really delved into that complex topic incredibly well. I feel like it's one that I'll reread and notice things that I missed because I was so caught up in the writing and then I was so caught up in the plot. I really liked the representation in this one. Our main character is selectively mute, so you get to see that representation. She's also trans, so you see some of that too, and of course we're following a lot of black characters who speak in whatever vernacular suits them or suits their culture. The foods that were mentioned were great. The fact that we see Jam doing her hair and such, I loved all of that. It made me feel so seen, and it's just such a nice thing to see in a book from time to time. And I also really valued the male-female friendship in this one. Redemption and Jam have such a beautiful friendship, and of course their friendship goes through difficulties throughout this book, but I could really see the love that they have for each other. Another aspect of this book that I liked was the sentient house. It's like quietly personified, and I appreciated that, and it was beautiful for setting the atmosphere. And then I also really liked how included the parents were in this story. Both sets of parents were very included in the story, and I appreciated seeing that representation too. This book is just fantastic. What more do you want me to say? Go and read it, please. And also thank you to Shannon from 155 Books for buddy reading this with me. It was a wonderful buddy reading experience, and I really enjoyed discussing this novel with you. Then continuing on with the books that I read for Black History Month, I have a vlog where I discuss these books in more detail, but I'm just going to wrap up my thoughts here. The first one that I finished reading was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne E. Brown, and this one is a fantasy novel that follows these two characters, Malik and Karina, and Malik is a refugee who gains passageway into this city with his siblings, and his younger sibling is kidnapped, and the only way he can get her back is if he murders the princess. And the princess happens to be Karina, but Karina is going through difficulties of her own, and she needs to commit a murder for her difficulties to be solved as well. Now, when I was reading this one, I thought it was quite mediocre, but at the same time I was appreciating the fact that this is, you know, the standard fantasy novel that I know quite well, but we get to see black characters and a bit of black culture in there and a bit of mythology, which I appreciated. So even though I was finding it mediocre, I was still enjoying it well enough. And then I switched to audiobook halfway, and that's when my enjoyment really ramped up because the narrators did such a fantastic job with this. I listened to it on Script, and I've got a link down below where you can get 60 days free with Script if you sign up for the first time, and it also gives me a free month, so we're supporting each other. And yes, I just really enjoyed listening to this one. And then the ending happened happened, and the ending went places that I did not expect the ending to go, and I really appreciated the fact that it suddenly switched up the game. It was not like every other fantasy anymore, it was unique, and it made me want to actually read the sequel and continue this series, so I was very happy with that ending. I just think if you're finding it mediocre in the beginning, you kind of have to just keep going through it to get to that ending. After that, I read Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, and this is a very popular novel. It won the Booker Prize in 2019, had to share it, but it totally won it, okay? And this one follows a variety of women and also non-binary people about their experience being Black and British in the UK. There's nothing much more to it. I feel like that synopsis is the best one I can give, but it does go deep into their current situations, but also how their history led them there, and you're seeing all of these experiences in so much depth, and it discusses and talks on so many different topics, because we've got queer Black people here, we've got female Black people, we've got Black people with African descent and heritage, and it just really delves deep into what life can truly be like, the highs and lows of life, the good sides, the bad sides, and I really liked how it showed your perception of people might not be how that person truly is. You can't really know until you've experienced what they've truly experienced or seen things from their eyes. I thought that was done very well, and I feel like it's a book that I learned a lot from reading when it comes to talking about people and experiences. Even though I didn't love the book completely, I didn't find it very readable, it wasn't very engaging to me, and yet it was still something that I appreciated reading. I feel like it's very hard for me to explain my feelings on this book, so it's definitely one that I still recommend even though I didn't love it, and I know a lot of other people do love it. It's written in verse in a way, it's got a very unique writing style, and yeah, I don't think there's much more I want to say. If you want more details, check out my vlog. I also finished reading The Prince and the Dressmaker by Wang, and this one is a graphic novel that has to do with a prince who likes to wear dresses. However, this is a secret. He doesn't feel like he can tell his royal family, and he employs a dressmaker to make him some fantastic dresses when he goes out undercover, or like in disguise I could say. And I thought this was a really cute graphic novel. It was just enjoyable to read, it was happy, it gave me some really nice feels, and the dresses looked absolutely fantastic. I think it also talked a lot about identity and discovering yourself. Both of these characters are moving forwards in their life, they're teenagers, so of course the dressmaker wants to become big in the dress career, and you can see her ambition and her passion for clothes. And then we've got the prince who just wants to be himself but struggles to reconcile that with his royal family and what his parents might think of him. And I just think it came together in a very lovely way. It was beautiful to read, and I really liked the colours and illustrations in the graphic novel. I think they were fantastic, so I just had a lot of fun reading this one. I don't feel like it's one where I have very deep thoughts about it, but that's okay. It's nice to read books for fun and enjoyment from time to time, and this definitely brought me that. Then I read Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, and this is for my Read It Backwards series, where I'm rereading some of my favourite series backwards. So of course this was a reread, and I have a longer vlog with all of my thoughts on this particular book, but this is the second one in the Percy Jackson series, which follows Percy, who finds out that he is a son of Poseidon and a demigod, and the gods believe that he stole something, so he needs to clear his name, and it kind of goes on an adventure to be able to do that. And I actually found this was my favourite one upon reread, which surprised me, because when I was reading this series for the first time when I was younger, this was not my favourite book, but it's the one that I actually remember the most from, and I just had such a blast reading it. It was so fun. Tyson is amazing, and I'm not really going to say much more because we've got a long vlog for all of those thoughts. I want to talk about my most disappointing read this month. Even though it's not my lowest rating, it is my most disappointing one because I expected so much more, and that was The Fowl Twins by Owen Colfer. Now this is a spin-off series from Artemis Fowl, and it follows the Fowl twins, Beckett and Miles, who are like siblings of the main family. Try not to spoil the original series while talking about the spin-off is really difficult. But yes, this is Miles and Beckett's story, and they're having their first magical encounter, and it's just going from there, their first magical encounter. Now, it's interesting to me that the thing that I like the least about this book is the thing that I expected to like the most, and that is the writing style. The writing style grated on my nerves. I feel like Colfer was trying a bit too hard with the writing style to make it unique and to make it different from the first one, and it just got entirely patronising and condescending. The way he presents information and the way he's like manipulate the order in which events are told to you, and the way he's like, this is what happens, step 1, step 2, step 3, and breaking it down like that, it just didn't work for me. I think the writing style was really annoying and it drew me away from the story. I didn't mind the characters so much. I thought the characters were going to be something I struggled with, but I actually really liked the dynamic between Miles and Beckett, and also how one was supposed to be the designated smart person and the designated instinctive person, and then it kind of broke those barriers down a little bit over the course of the novel, and I appreciated seeing that discussion thrown in there. And the magic side of the story was fun, but it kind of read as if it was for younger readers, even though the characters are not much younger than Artemis Fowl is in the original series at the beginning, so I don't understand why it was pitched younger with the style and the story itself. And then as well as that, the story wasn't as engaging as the original Artemis Fowl ones. I feel like it's impossible to not make these comparisons, even though I try not to. I felt like there were too many coincidences that were convenient, and it kind of drew away from the story where, you know, I'm so used to the main character using his smarts to save the day, or the action just helping along the story. I feel like a lot of things were just coincidental and therefore they were overcome by convenience, and I was like, oh, it doesn't make as great of a story. Then the last thing I wanted to say is that I did expect to see a butler in this book, because in the original series, every Fowl gets a butler, so I thought there would at least be one, and I was hoping it was going to be Juliet Butler, but there were no butlers whatsoever, and that kind of... it was sad. That was the only expectation I had for this book, so I was a bit disappointed in that. And then again, I feel like the characters were carbon copies of the ones in the original series, and that really bugs me when it comes to spin-offs, because if you are going to do a spin-off, make it unique, make it its own thing. It doesn't have to be so close to the original, because then people won't be able to stop comparing to the original. So I could draw lines like Miles is supposed to be a substitute Artemis, Beckett is supposed to be a substitute Butler, Nana is supposed to be a substitute Foley, and I could just see all of these connections, and it kind of drew me away from the story because it was similar to what was before, but it just wasn't as good as what is before, and that is the problem with having similar characters. I have gone on an extensive rant about this book, but it's by no means a bad book. I would put this as a middle of the road read. I just don't think it's as captivating as the originals. It was just... the originals were better, and unfortunately will not be continuing on with this series. It's the end of the Artemis Fowl era for me. It really is. The next book that I read for class was The House on Manga Street by Sandra Cisneros, and this one follows a Mexican family living in Chicago, and they live on Manga Street, which is not the richest street. It's quite a poor street, and it's following their experiences living there, but it also follows the community, because there's like a Mexican community that live on this street, and the chapters are very short. This was a very quick read. I raced through it in a single day, and I think it was okay. Like, I enjoyed it, but it's not particularly memorable. It's not one I'm going to be thinking about later on down the line. And yeah, we just follow their experiences, and we see different snapshots of other people's experiences, and I feel like because we saw so many different snapshots, the story didn't feel very cohesive to me. It didn't make a memorable mark. And we do talk a lot about language, we talk a bit about culture, we talk a bit about race, we talk a lot about poverty and capitalism, and just how their lives are shaped by all of these things, and how they struggle to fit into both cultures, being Mexican American or Mexicans living in America. And yeah, it was good. It just wasn't particularly memorable, and I don't particularly have a lot of things to say either. I feel like it's very rare that I don't have much to say on books, but that was just one where it was like, this was nice, and that's it. Then we've got some review copies. Unfortunately, I did not like this book, and that is The Secrets of the Starcrossed by Clara O'Connor, which is the first one in the Once and Future Queen series. And in this one, we follow this world, which is a mishmash of historical England, but also advanced technology, but also magic, and it didn't really fit together very well because it was trying to do far too much with the world building, and therefore the world building became very, very confusing and hard to follow, and I didn't understand all of the history and how it all fit into the present day much. And we have our main character who finds this guy who has illegal technology in class, and she kind of helps him out, and from there she gets caught into this magical world where magic exists and he's looking for someone in particular and she might be who he's looking for, and the plot kind of goes from there. It was very juvenile. I feel like the romance was just, there was a love triangle, but it was very clear who she was going to choose from the get-go and from the start, and it just happened too fast for me, so I wasn't really behind the romance. And her character just flip-flopped around. Sometimes she was annoying, sometimes she was too privileged, sometimes she was, you know, empathizing with them and understanding them, and she just kind of was such a blend of things that was the problem with this book. It was such a blend of things that nothing really stood out and nothing really struck me. The world building was a blend of too much, her character was a blend of too much, then the romance was way too fast and straightforward. The one thing that I will say for this novel is that nothing happens conveniently and there's very high stakes, and I feel like so many things just continuously go wrong for these characters that it gets quite readable. You can just read it very quickly because you're like, oh, this has gone wrong, what are they going to do now? Oh no, now something more has gone wrong, what are they going to do now? So I feel like the plot at least has a fast pace to it and high stakes, but I think that was the only thing this novel really had going for it, and I wouldn't really recommend this one. I also read A Nurse's Story by Louise Curtis with Sarah Johnson, and this one follows a nurse's experience during the pandemic, so it's very topical at the moment. If you're not ready to read a story about COVID and the pandemic, don't pick this one up, but I do really recommend it. It was a very good read in my opinion. I really appreciated Louise Curtis's narration because she's just so like straightforward with this book, and I think she does a very good job of balancing the seriousness of the situation and the sad moments of the situation and the scary moments with some light-hearted and entertaining stories as well, because not only does she have chapters that are focusing on her experience working in A&E during the pandemic and everything that she sees and how she sees the progression of COVID and the pandemic and gets, you know, has to adapt to all of these different phases that they go through. She also mentions some of the life before the pandemic started for a bit of a comparison, but also focusing on those cases meant it got a bit lighter at points, and we got to see some, you know, funny cases. Can any medical case be funny? But you know, sometimes if you write things in a certain way they can be, and she managed to do that. And I appreciated how she included personal stories as well. That takes a lot to share them, but it also meant that we got to veer away from the A&E room at times. So I think this was a very well balanced non-fiction read, but I also just found that she wrote it so sensitively. And while I was reading this, I couldn't help but think, what was the situation like a few months ago? Because this one is definitely the start of the pandemic to probably around November, December, and of course things got even worse for the UK after that. So it really was making me think about the situation more recently compared to what she was talking about in this book, and I really recommend this one. Then we're down to our last review copy, which is a middle grade, and that is Alessia in Atlantis by Nathalie Laine. And this one follows Alessia, who is a girl who has a strong empathy for other people, and she sees that as a weakness because she ends up doing drastic things when she feels extreme emotions of other people. And she is one day dragged into the water and dragged into this underwater world called Atlantis, and she has always been searching for her missing father or to learn more about her father. And when she finds out that her father came from Atlantis, she has the opportunity to learn a bit more about him, but there is an empire which decrees that you should not be looking into the history of missing peoples. Now this book surprised me, and I mean that in a literal sense, okay? When it comes to middle grade, I can often find it predictable at times, but I don't particularly mind because I'm an adult reading the middle grade book and I'm just there along for the journey. But this one had plot twists that I didn't see coming. I was shaken when I was reading the end. I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't see any of this coming. I had suspicions, but I don't know, I was enjoying the fact that I didn't see things coming from the plot, but I also really liked the friendships that we see in this one. Some of the friendships are so genuine and so lovely. The underwater world sounds wonderful. It's very creative and very extensive. In the beginning it was quite a lot of information to take in, but then it starts to slow down with how much information it gives you over time, and I appreciated seeing that, and it was fun to be in this world. I like the gradual understanding that Alessia gains of how empathy is quite a good thing to have and how it can be a positive rather than a negative. And I feel like this one also with the Empire does a good job of discussing themes of good, bad and the grey area in between in a very complex way that's understandable for children reading this book. So I just really appreciated this one and had a lot of fun reading it, and definitely recommend. I would happily read any more books that come out in this series. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about another favourite, a new favourite that I have this month, and this was my last required reading novel for university ever, and I'm so glad it was my last one because I absolutely adored it, and that is Angels in America by Tony Kushner. Now this is a play in 2 parts, and it's set during the AIDS crisis. It's about the men during this AIDS crisis, and we follow 2 separate storylines that intertwine quite a bit, and one of them is about a gay man who has AIDS and dealing with that with his partner and his friends, and then the other one is about Harper and Joe, and I'll just leave it there and you can follow their story when you read it. Now this play did everything so well. Now I think it did a very good job with having humour while also balancing this very sad and emotional storyline, and the fact that it balanced those 2 things so well, which can be very difficult to do, I was very, very impressed. It also deals a lot with religion because Joe is a Mormon, so we see these like religious imagery, we see religious themes, but we also see the LGBT plus community and have those themes, and it's talking a lot about responsibility, it's talking a lot about grief and illness, but it's also talking about what goes unsaid and the silence. I feel like it did a very good job in putting that in literally, to the way that characters trail off, to the way that characters dodge around certain words as if they're bad words, and the way that the characters try and avoid the main point of discussion while they're talking about a certain something. I just appreciated seeing that so much. We've got these 2 storylines, and the way that they stage it in this play, from what you can read in the stage directions, and how these storylines kind of mimic each other but at the same time are unique, and the moments where the scenes almost blur because they're so similar. Fantastic. I think the writing of this play is masterful, and I cannot wait to see it on stage. I will say that this play is more explicit in nature than plays that I'm used to, and it quite shocked me. The language is stronger than I'm used to in plays, but it's also got quite a lot of sexual discussion, and I'm just not used to seeing that in plays, especially as plays are like visually on stage. So I just thought I would mention it in case that's not your cup of tea, but I do think this is a really important book, and it just covered a realm of things in a single play, did it all so well, and I was incredibly satisfied with the conclusion of the storylines that it did. I loved it. A new favourite play. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And there you have it. Those are the 11 books that I read in the month of February. Please let me know in the comment section down below what was your favourite read in the month of February. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video, and you know what they say. Onwards and upwards. Excelsior!